What did you think of The War Within? And there are some cool reveals to learn about player housing. Hey, it's Soul, and this is Warcraft Weekly, your escape from what's out there to our first world problems. You can help support the channel by liking this video, subscribing for more WoW coverage, and catching me where I'm live. The train is picking up steam as the 11.2.7 patch was both announced this week and now made available for testing. Some of the notable additions with this first build include the changes to skywriting from Vigor to Charges, a move that has been so far received very well for its simplicity. Another change includes allowing the single button assistant and the press and hold functionality to work together, letting gamers just hold button to DPS. The simplification of classes and specs, okay, that's one thing, right? And now it feels like Blizzard's applying that Apple polish. But if you're up for it, hey, check the PTR and give it a spin. The umbrella that is player housing is also casting its shadow over the entire game, with a new UI, but more importantly, decor to start collecting right away to build up your arsenal of collections, and maybe, because I'm not sure how it works yet, maybe build up housing experience for levels that let you have a bigger housing budget, more options, and so on. Like, this is crazy. Like, it feels like there's so much going on, and even as a creator, I don't feel fully prepared for everything that's going to happen, but it's also pretty exciting. This week, we're living through 11.2.5 starring the Legion remix, at least, once you get through the lag. Meanwhile, we're just a few weeks away from the turbo boost, and that makes up for most of what's happening in at least the next couple of weeks. Next patch is going to be a doozy, complete with story elements that kick off the events for Midnight. Another lore walking scenario is being added to highlight the Blood Elves and the other elves. Player housing hopes to make waves and act as if it's been here all along. The Brawlers Guild is also coming back with modifications and new rewards, and here's the interesting bit: another Turbulent Timeways event is coming alongside Shadowlands Time Walking, and this is going to cover a 10-week rotation. Like many have been saying, there will be no lull this time as we move closer to Midnight. There's going to be no Season 4 to bring us back to the old raids. And I know lots of people weren't fond of the concept of the Encore season, something recycled content. I just thought it was kind of cool to go back because, somehow fighting Queen Ansrak feels like a lifetime ago. Arguably, the biggest thing coming out of this patch is the Pandaren Heritage Armor. Okay, it's not, but it is, but okay, it kind of is. But also, they're going to let players test out player housing on the PTR. It's going to happen next week, Monday through Thursday, and the team has been working out some of the kinks to ensure a mostly stable test window. I do wish this test window was longer though. Like, it's a very, very cool opportunity for all players, not just those of us who got in some early play testing, and I'll talk more on this later. With the 11.2.7 reveal, we can take a big step back and look at this whole expansion. Like, what did you think of The War Within as a whole, now that we know what we know, now that we can look all the way back almost? I only have a quick take here. I think this expansion is packed with regular activities to suck up time and to help sate our endless hunger for rewards. Of course, not every activity was a hit, right? Some folks who didn't like A, they might have loved B, and it goes both ways. I also gotta give a special shout out for Delves, which changed the game considerably, especially for those who want that Warcraft sense of adventure, but solo. Delves became a new kind of adventure for some, and it peeled away what I think are the right kinds of players who are ready to step away from the regular flow of group-based PvE and still prove to be a worthwhile visit for progression players who wanted to move on later. And while it's technically a Midnight feature, the introduction of housing during the War Within, it's helping to define this new era of WoW that still has a strong focus on group content, but also added this standalone solo experience and soon a sandbox of expression. Those are just my observations, though. I want to hear your personal takes. How's it been for you? I want to circle back a bit. The language of the 11.2.7 reveal doesn't indicate when Turbulent Timeways is going to start. Like, usually we see certain phrasing like, it's coming with the patch, or soon after the patch, right? Knowing the event is 10 weeks long, that's important, because time between patches has typically been averaging around like 8 weeks, give or take. So will the pre-patch come during or after the event is over? We gotta wonder if the team can commit to the same regular patch cadence knowing they'll be taking some time off during the holiday break. In other words, I guess I'm just asking, will Midnight's launch be firmly in the March timeline as opposed to late February or early March? I wouldn't mind this so much personally because it gives me more flexibility for beta and profession coverage, along with like wrapping things up like the new meta achievement that will come with the 11.27 patch. Even with the possibility Midnight is pushed back a few weeks, The War Within is still a very tightly packed expansion and one of its shortest. For those of you who were around at the time, think back to the Siege of Orgrimmar patch, or that tier or season, whatever you want to call it. Just that raid had to last over a year with only minor updates added in between. Hellfire Citadel, which at least added some time walking in the meantime, that still lasted over a year, and that's only a bit longer than the entirety of The War Within, at least so far, which says a lot to how much the team has improved on giving us content, but also how impatient and insatiable we'll be no matter what. Okay, let's talk about the updates to housing on the alpha, because with any luck, these will be reflected on the upcoming PTR. I'm also going to provide an easy starting guide to housing for those of you who want to sink their teeth into the alpha test. The biggest thing is outdoor decor and editing of your house is now available for testing. The offerings between orc and human exteriors are obviously limited, but I'm digging the flexibility so far. Editing the house directly has this very modular feel, like we have a base and then we have a number of hooks that we can assign to show us windows or fortified extensions or chimneys and towers and so on. The expectation is, of course, we'll see lots of variety in entranceways and more window types and so on, and even when that's all done, we can still freely place other decor on the house to add some garnish, so to speak, or maybe to really go all out with makeshift extensions that seem like the house is bigger when it's actually just a bunch of different parts thrown together. A lot more decor has been added to vendors, but I think there's a bug, like some items just don't show up on the house chest. The vendors in the neighborhood are also packed with decor to sell, all bought with good old-fashioned gold. So I expect there to be a good amount of decor that we can just buy, but I'm also wondering just how much of this will make it live, or is it here for the sake of testing? I don't think it's a bad message to send to players who want some easy early access to furniture. The prices here, while they might be a placeholder, they could be a hint as to how profitable housing will or won't be for professions. Like, do I really want to throw down for that really expensive crafted table, or will I settle for a more basic table that only costs like 100 gold? We also have a good sense of the relative size of our outdoor lots, and also the very low budget or limit of decor we can have at the start. Outdoors, it's going to be a budget of 200. Even with this limit, players are demonstrating what's possible thanks to the freedom allowed by clipping and resizing objects to pull off a very cool vibe. Inside, more decor options have been added, notably more customization for the walls, floors, and ceilings. I suppose it's to help create a darker or brighter atmosphere. What I'd also like to have, though, is a way to control the ambient light in the home. Like, what if I want to make a sunroom that windows could never pull off on their own? Like, I want to pull off the illusion of a skylight. Or maybe I want to create a more realistic or creepy vibe of the interior being only sparsely lit with a fell-colored candlelight. And we're seeing the dye system develop a little bit more. In this current update, the dye crafting station asks for pigments, and scribes are the only profession that can grind herbs into pigments. On screen, you can see all the different pigments available, all of which is used to make the many dyes. To make a pigment, use the pull down and select the herb you want to grind down. Each pigment may ask for herbs from all of WoW's expansions, so to make this green pigment, I could use Swift Thistle, or Green Tea Leaf, or Blessing Blossom, and more. With how it looks so far, it feels as if dye crafting is going to set a new price floor across all herbs in the game, although that all depends on the colors people care for. But you also know what this means, right? It pretty much means it's time to go back to the garrison if we want to save some gold. I also think it means the cost of herbs overall is going to have a slightly higher bottom floor because with this approach, it's always going to be useful for something in the present game, and that's the show, sort of. I want to wrap things up with asking all of you who are participating, how are you liking the Legion remix so far? We can't dismiss the issues, notably the lag from earlier and some imbalance with artifact abilities, but I mostly want to ask about the experience compared to the start of the Mr. Pandaria remix a while back. Like, how did the special abilities and traits feel? What do you think of Heroic World Tier? I feel like the time that it took to reach max level, at least for the first time, it felt like about the same as the Mob remix. As usual, I went in fairly hard at the start, but this time I'm also split between alpha coverage, so I won't be able to no-life the remix like I did back then, but at the same time, the current remix feels very accessible. Like, here's what happened. Like, I went in with some guildmates into the normal raids, and we blasted them. It was mostly for levels and everything, but it turned out very well with a mix of tryhards and people still leveling up. And this is only after a few days in. The Weekend Warriors, though, they're going to be what puts us all to the test, so I'm very curious how y'all are doing. This coming week, I plan on diving a bit deeper into the alpha and finally give some initial thoughts on professions, while listening and watching for your reactions to housing once you get your hands on it. So I want to give a huge, big, super huge shout out to Blizzard for choosing me as part of some evil experiment they were doing. So it was pretty last minute, but the other day I had the opportunity to stream directly on their Twitch channel, and I got to meet a ton of new faces. I mean, okay, they were mostly asking for the remix servers to stop lagging, but after things settled down, the vibe was back to our very, usual chill plus 1,000 or so people, which was very cool. So 10 out of 10, I would do it again. And it's also a very cool sign that the WoW team might be interested in featuring other smaller streamers to get the audience to know even more of its community. So huge shout out to everyone who did join me for that, as well as the other live streamers, of course. Your support has been amazing. Thanks as always to our patrons, and we can't forget about you. Viewer, you made it to the end, you fed the algorithm. Now all you gotta do is like this video, subscribe for more WoW coverage, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.